Hey guys, thank you so much for coming back to my channel. For my new viewers and my passerbys, I'm a full-time reseller. My name is Riley. I also stay at home with my 3 children. It's kind of relevant because I'm sure I'm going to be interrupted in this video like most of my videos are. So if I randomly cut out and then I come back looking 10 times more stressed, it's because I was interrupted by one of my children. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. Also, news for my viewers who care about the other part of me, because I feel like 80% of me is just reselling and then the other 20% of me is like the real Riley. For those of you who actually care about the other 20%, I have made the decision to homeschool my 3 children this academic year. So from 2020 to 2021, I'm going to be homeschooling them. It's nothing long term. I'm hoping to send them back next academic year. The reason this is important is because, well, is it really that important? I know some of you guys care, and I already announced it over on Instagram, but I haven't announced it on YouTube yet. If you notice about 6 months from now, me looking really stressed and flaky in my videos, I might need a mental health check because I don't know how well I'm going to be able to balance homeschooling and reselling full-time. That was a joke. That I was being sarcastic. I'm sure my mental health will be fine. Some people put words in my mouth, so I have to clarify. That was a joke. I can't wait to homeschool my kids. I'm so lucky. Also, I got new glasses. I have had the same frame for like 6 years. Every time I go to get new lenses put in, I just order the exact same make and model frame. So the fact that I actually did new frames, I feel like I got Botox. Like I feel like my whole face changed. So that's exciting. For this video, I'm going to be talking about my reseller fails. I'm literally just going to be sitting here talking. I don't really know if anything's going to be super educational. So if you're looking for like a cool educational or reseller video, this one probably isn't it. Just going to be talking about like my mistakes as a reseller. I thought about doing a video. I thought about including like my worst bad buys, like the things that I've lost the most money on, the items that I'm basically just ashamed that I ever picked up in the first place, which I feel like all resellers have, because I mean, a part of reselling is taking risks on things, right? Right? But I thought that would make the video way too long, so I'm sure in the future I'm going to be making a list video of the worst bad buys that I've ever had. This one, I'm just going to be basically talking about like my fun, stupid, like, oh, I'm an idiot, look what I did mistakes. So I think I capped everything. These are in no particular order. I will say I started reselling in 2016, and I think like the first year I probably made like 200 mistakes. I probably averaged like 1.5 a day. So that would actually be way more than 200. Obviously my calculation's way off there. But anyway, I'm not really going to go into detail with like the first year of reselling because it would be I would be just telling you guys for like 2 hours all the stupid mistakes I made and all the money I lost because I wasn't doing it right. So I'm going to try to focus on like, I guess my more recent ones where, I mean, I should have known better. About 2 years ago, starting with the first one, about 2 years ago, my fiance and I went on a reseller road trip. He's a reseller. If you guys do not know what my little reseller road trips are, I've talked about them in the past, but they're weird. We will drive like 2 hours to a destination, and usually the destination is like a cool mom and pop thrift shop or an antique shop or even like a restaurant that's 2 hours away, a few cities over. But we will stop at every thrift store on the way there. Like we will map it out, and the whole day we will spend going from thrift store to thrift store to thrift store in a town that isn't ours, because, you know, I always go to the same 5 thrift stores, so it's fun to switch it up. Anyway, and yes, this is relevant, the fact that it was 2 hours away. We get to our destination, and I'm at one of the last thrift shops, our destination city, and I'm at one of the last thrift shops, and it's like a hole in the wall thrift shop. Like it's really dirty, but it's really good. Like you can tell it's like a vintage gold mine. And I found, oh my gosh, like $300 worth of 1960s dresses. And I'm not talking just like a normal 1960s dress, because those are not hard to find at all. If you think about it, in the reseller world, 1960, it's not that long ago. You know, we're not talking about like Victorian clothing here. But the reason this haul was special was because it was 1960s mod. So when you think of like I mean, basically what people think of when they think of like retro 1960s, like super modern, like bright in your face florals, like retro smiley faces and crazy like psychedelic butterflies. I mean, all the prints were just absolutely awesome. Now that I'm actually saying it out loud, I'm really getting mad that this even happened to me. So anyway, I had like $300 worth of 1960s dresses in my cart, and I had two of my kids with me. I think my fiance was, he had the baby because our littlest was like only 6 months old at this point, so he was walking around with him. But I was like pretty distracted because I was trying to like keep my kids like in line right next to me, you know, putting all these dresses in my cart. I get up to the front, I'm sweating, I have tunnel vision, I'm like not focused on what I'm doing, but I'm taking everything from my cart and putting it up front, and I'm getting in a conversation with this cashier and whatever. I didn't think anything of it, and she reads me my total and it was like $114, and I'm like, well, that's awesome. Like maybe it's half off. I mean, in hindsight, I'm an idiot. I can't explain why I suddenly magically thought my $300 calculated total turned into $114, and I just walked away. But that's what happened. Slid my card through. She hands me a big garbage bag with all my stuff in it. Put it in the car. We got home later that night at like 8 o'clock. I start the bathtub with warm water and pour some dish soap in it because I'm ready to soak all my crazy vintage 1960s mod finds. And as I get about halfway through the bag, I'm like, I don't have everything. Like over half of the items that I threw in the cart are not there. So I just got this sick feeling in my gut. I quickly grabbed the receipt and I'm looking at it and I'm like, she charged me normal prices for everything. Like she didn't charge me and then forget to bag the items. What I think happened once I actually stopped and was able to think about it was I was in such a hurry, you know, tunnel vision. If you have kids and you go thrifting with them, you know this feeling. You just want to get out of the store as quickly as possible. I think when I was handing her like the piles of vintage clothing, she would take a couple like small piles and she would set them to the side so that she could bag them later, but she hadn't scanned them yet. And I didn't think anything of it. Like I wasn't like making a mental note like, oh, she's putting those ones over there. Make sure she scans them. And I think I obviously just walked away without ever paying for those pieces, and she must have just forgot that she had placed them over there. So the really hard part to swallow for me is that I sold probably at this point, I mean, it's been 2 years, like 95% of those pieces. Like they sold pretty quickly for around $30 to $50 a piece because 1960s mod, like that's really trendy right now. So I did lose out on huge profit potential by missing out on those items. And I wanted to call the next day. I mean, I was really sick to my stomach over it. I wanted to call the next day and like ask them if they could possibly ship them out to me, and I would PayPal them, you know, the extra money for the shipping. But at that point, like I was just so salty about the situation, and it was nobody's fault. It was not the cashier's fault. It wasn't my fault. If anybody's fault, it was my fault for not pointing out like, hey, like, don't forget that stuff, because I was piling it on, which I should have probably just given her a couple at a time. So if anybody's fault was at fault, it was me. It was my own fault. But I was really salty the next day. Like I didn't even want to step foot in that thrift store again, because I'm like, how dare she forget to scan like one of my best 1960s hauls ever. So I was going to call the next day. I didn't. To this day, it still makes me sick to my stomach to think that those pieces were left behind. One thing that I'm a sucker for is Art Deco porcelain, like Art Deco salt and pepper shakers and Art Deco, you know, kitchenware. Because if you think about it, over the last like 150 years, the general like shape and style of kitchenware, like porcelain and ceramic kitchenware, hasn't really changed. Like bowls are still shaped like bowls and cups are still shaped like cups. Like that hasn't really changed. But there was a weird period in like the late 1920s where like when they were doing like people really into Art Deco, like everything was like streamlined, modern, kind of like what they did in like late 1950s when they did like the atomic everything, but this is 1920s version. Anyway, so I'm actually going to include a picture of these just so that you guys can understand what I'm trying to say here. So I'm at the thrift shop and I see these really awesome like Art Deco teacups and saucers and plates, and they're not in your face Art Deco, but it's just Art Deco enough to where I thought like, oh, a collector is definitely gonna want these. So anyway, I think it was like 79 cents an item, and they were like maybe 25 or 30 pieces to the set. So I bought them all. So I paid like what, like 25 bucks, like nothing crazy. But I get them home, and this is how oblivious I was. Like, I had blinders on because I was just happy to find something that was slightly Art Deco kitchenware. They were monogrammed. Like, every cup and every saucer and every plate was monogrammed with like a family name. Like, I think it was CDG or DCG or something like that. But I'm like, so unless somebody has the exact same initials as the initials in this set, like, I was basically sitting on like something that was going to be really hard to sell. And I had the set listed for way cheaper than I initially imagined, for like 2 months, and I eventually just took it off Etsy because I was so embarrassed that I thought that those would be sellable. I was just embarrassed that I literally didn't notice. And I saw the text on the side, because even the font was Art Deco. The font style was Art Deco, which excited me. But I didn't really understand like what the font was for. I didn't put two and two together, and then I got home and I realized, though, it's like a family monogram. Like, nobody's ever gonna just randomly come across that and say, hey, that matches my name. When I ruined like 3 pairs of leather boots. So I was at the Goodwill bins. So I didn't pay that much for them, but I was at the Goodwill bins and I found two. There was definitely a pair of Red Wing boots. I think it was 2 pairs of Red Wing boots. I don't even remember the other one, what the other brand was. But anyway, Red Wing boots, like, they're expensive. A lot of people will buy them used. Like, I could have gotten like $40 a pair. But they were a little beat up. Like, they were in horrible condition, but the leather was a little bit dry and scuffed, and, you know, the leather needed to be cleaned up. And I've cleaned up leather plenty of times. Like, it's not, you just use a little bit of leather conditioner, suede cleaner, whatever. So I had this new leather conditioner that I actually got from the Amazon pallet. I put it on my rag and I started, you know, wiping the boots down. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, the conditioner didn't seem like it was making any bit of a difference. So I'm like, I keep putting it on the rag, doing my boots, trying to see if they're working. Well, I ended up soaking the rag because I was just getting stressed out. I'm like, how can I can't rub these scuffs out? Like, what's going on? Like, usually if you use leather conditioner, like, you'll see a slight difference in the tone of the leather once you put the conditioner on. Like, it darkens it just a bit, but the darkness usually clears itself up or evens itself out. Well, I go back around and I'm just slog. Like, at this point, I'm just stressed and I'm making bad decisions and I'm just slogging the leather conditioner around the boot. And it's working. Like, I see the scuffs and the leather cracks. I see them starting to moisturize themselves. And long story short, I soaked the hell out of the boots in leather conditioner thinking that was going to work. In the back of my mind the whole time, I'm like, I'm probably over soaking these, but hey, they'll dry out. They never dried out. The color of the boots was permanently, like, not just a tone darker, but like 6 shades darker than what they were supposed to be. Like, I brought them from like a pretty like mahogany to like a dark oak. Is mahogany lighter than oak, or am I getting this mixed up in my head? But you guys get the point. The color was never even all the way around. But what makes the story even worse is as I was just sloshing this leather conditioner around these Red Wing boots, my rag was so soaking wet. Just to give you guys an idea of how stupid I was. My rag was so soaking wet in the leather conditioner that there were a couple of drips that had dripped down into the basket below me that was like in between the washing machine and my body that had the other leather boots in it. So then these leather boots that I hadn't even tried cleaning yet had little like oil dots on the top from this leather conditioner. And so at this point I'm stressed out, but I'm not that, I didn't think I ruined the boots because I figured it's just leather conditioner. Like, I'll let them dry out naturally. So I grabbed the other boots that I had, you know, spilt basically with my wet rag, just letting it drip down. I grab them, I try to even out the little leather conditioner dots. And in the process, I'm also over conditioning and just soaking these boots. Long story short, all 3 of the boots never got listed. I redonated them. They never looked the same. It was actually so bad that they literally looked oily like 2 weeks after the fact. I tried to let them dry out. I tried to use dry rags to just wash out all that leather conditioner that I put on. Long story short, I basically ruined the boots. Now they're in a Goodwill somewhere looking greasy as hell. That was a big mistake. So now when I do leather conditioner, like, I'm really, really, really weird about it. So another big stupid dummy decision of me was About 2 years after I had really started reselling, and at this point I had been on the Instagram, in the Instagram community for maybe like 8 months. I don't really know. Anyway, I saw that other people were doing retail arbitrage where they would go into like TJ Maxx or Nordstrom or Marshalls, and specifically at TJ Maxx they would wait for a yellow tag sale and they would buy these items and then they would resell them new with tags. Retail arbitrage, I'm sure most of you know what it is. The yellow tag sale at TJ Maxx, so something will get marked down a few times, it will have a red clearance tag, but when they really need to move it, like when it goes like 75, 80, 90% off, it'll be yellow tag. Sometimes yellow tag stuff, there's not really that much room to make money, even if it's been marked down like 12 times, which I should have known. Like, it's common sense now that I look back on it. But at the time, I just had a big head. Like, I had been reselling for a couple years. Like, I was doing good. I was ready to, at this point, I hadn't really done much retail arbitrage, so I was ready for the next step in my business where I was going to be retail arbitrage mogul. Like, it was just, I had a big head and I got in over my head. I went to TJ Maxx. I bought like 3 bags that were yellow tagged, and they still weren't cheap. Like, I think one was a Marc Jacobs crossbody that was normally like $400, and I got it for like $49, so I spent $50 on it. But I figured, spent $50, I'll list it for $150 and I'll make like $60 profit after shipping and fees, whatever. I bought some shoes. Anyway, I spent like $400 at TJ Maxx on some yellow tag stuff. And I tried to comp search when I was actually in TJ Maxx and try to look for something similar and see what it sold for. But I wasn't really, I was kind of just like trying to like listen to my gut. Like, hey, it's Marc Jacobs. That's good. That's probably worth $200. Like, I wasn't being smart about it. I was being sloppy. I'm not going to lie. I'm ashamed to admit it now that I didn't look up comp searching because of, anyway. So anyway, I get back home. I start listing things, and I'm doing real comp searching at this point. Like, I'm actually doing my homework that I should have done in the store. And I realize, like, 75% of what I have, there's so many people who had the same idea as me to go to TJ Maxx and try to flip things, that the market was so saturated, there was like no room to make money. So some of the stuff I sold, a couple of pieces, I just bit the bullet, I bit my tongue, and I saved them to give away as like Christmas gifts. But I think profit, I probably made like $100 profit, and I put way more time and effort into it than I should have. And to this day, I still do not do that much retail arbitraging. I see a lot of resellers who are good at it. Retail arbitrage takes a lot of calculation, takes a lot of knowledge. You really have to be specific when you're comp searching. You can't just like comp search a brand in general. You actually have to find that exact same product, see what it's going for. Hopefully you can get it in before the market's saturated with it. Retail arbitrage, to this day, I'm not that good at it. I'm ashamed to admit it. I'm good at Amazon pallets. Not to like inflate my ego. I'm good at thrifted clothing. I'm good at vintage. I am not good at retail arbitrage to this day. I still just haven't gotten the hang of it. Honestly, I think when I'm in the store, I'm just a little overwhelmed, and I don't know. Here's a lovely one. I gotta end this video soon. I made a list of like 20 mistakes I made, and I just realized like I'm talking and I'm explaining each one of them in way too much detail, so this video is gonna be way longer than I thought it would be. My son's running the sink for no reason, so hold on. Okay, last one. I'll just pick one. Maybe I'll make a part 2 to this video. I did not think it was gonna be this long. I thought I was gonna like whip through them.
I want to put these with the bag.
Just put them up there and I'll find a bag for you, okay, honey?
Okay. Can I put another one?
Yes, honey, I have them. I have them for you, don't worry.
Okay.
Love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, real quick interval to explain why my son was just trying to tell me something. About a week ago, I had this great idea of going and buying like fish tank rocks, like the clear glass fish tank rocks, and I buried them all in the sandbox because my kids have a big 12x8 sandbox outside. And I was just, at this point, I was just trying to find activities to keep them busy. I didn't think much of it. And I told them, if you guys dig around and find these glass marbles, they're worth 25 cents each, and I'll pay you for them. And I thought that it was going to keep them busy for like 2 hours, and I would pay them like what, like $15 for 2 hours of a break where they're all just digging in the sandbox and I'm just sitting at the patio like enjoying myself. They found the rocks in like 7 minutes. So I got screwed because I had to go buy these fish tank rocks. I had to give them like $15 in Roblox credit just for me to sit on the patio for 7 minutes and watch them just whip through the sandbox digging for these things. So anyway, he just came up to me and he's asked me if he can have a bag for them. Anyway, okay. One of the last mistakes I'm going to talk about in this video was, I'm kind of going back to like 2018 again, because when I was really into doing the vintage, like where I sold 75% vintage and only like 25% of my stuff was clothing and Amazon returns, I went through this period where I was like doing mostly vintage, and I've scaled back on the vintage homeware just because packaging was getting really expensive, and when I would have like 10 sales and I would have to bubble wrap all these like expensive vases and stuff, like it was overwhelming. So I was like, I'm gonna focus more on clothing and Amazon returns because they're just, honestly, they're easier to ship, they're easier to store. You just, sometimes with clothing, you wrap them in tissue, throw them in a bag, you're good. So anyway, this was like back in 2018, like when I was still like doing mostly vintage home goods. I got on a kick where I was picking up like any and every Pyrex. And at this point I had already known like not all Pyrex is valuable. Like just because it's vintage Pyrex doesn't mean somebody's going to want to pay $30 for it, which a lot of people are falsely under the impression of. But I was still buying lots of Pyrex. I would go to my local auctions and estate sales and I would get lots of Pyrex. And a mistake I made for like 6 months was I would get these Pyrex sets. And they'd be worth like, maybe the set would be worth like 40 or 50 bucks. But a Pyrex set, like a casserole dish set, when you package that bad boy up, can weigh like 18 to 25 pounds. Like it's not cheap. It's thick and it's heavy, and you got to use a lot of bubble wrap, and you got to use thick cardboard boxes, and you got to buy the boxes. It's hard to find a bunch of recycled boxes that are this big and can fit, 5 casserole dishes in them. So a mistake I made for like 6 months was buying lots of Pyrex and lots of casserole dishes. Honestly, at the end of the day, after what I paid for them, after what I spent in shipping supplies, what I spent in, listing fees, and the actual, what I spent in shipping, because I was offering free shipping because my competitors were offering free shipping, I got to a point where I calculated it down and I was making like $7 to $14 per casserole set. Okay. Which means I had to spend like 30 minutes wrapping, use all this bubble wrap, use all this time and energy, wrapping up 5 casserole dishes for $7 profit. And I did this with like 13 sets of Pyrex casserole dishes. So, and I was on a kick with it because I was like, well, they're selling. I'm bringing them in and they're selling within a week. So, I mean, even if I'm just making a little bit of profit, it's still profit, right? But in retrospect, like at the end of, once I was selling out of them and I really took a step back and I was like, wait a minute. I'm doing this for $7 profit. Like it was not worth it. So that was a big reseller mistake that I was making for a while. Just, buying heavy, and it wasn't just Pyrex in itself. I mean, Pyrex is what I'm using as an example because I really got on a Pyrex kick where I was, getting them at antique malls and trying to flip them, whatever. Really anything that was like heavy ceramic sets, I was basically wasting my time and my effort, and all that energy and effort I could have been putting into selling something else. So anyway, wow. If you have made it through this whole video, you are the MVP because I did not think it was going to be this long. I had this great idea when I woke up this morning because I had such a stressful day yesterday over on Instagram. I'm not even going to get into it. But if you don't have an Instagram, don't create one because it's not worth it. Anyway, I did not think this video would be this long. So anyway, I don't know if I'm going to make a part 2. Honestly, like I said, this is just a fun video. I'm basically just ranting and complaining for no reason. Anyway, I might not. Like I said, I'm probably going to be doing like a list of my worst bad buys because that sounds like it's going to be fun too. Anyway, I haven't made a video like this in a while. If you didn't like it, go ahead and thumbs down. I mean, honestly, it didn't take that much effort. I was just kind of complaining about my biggest reseller mistakes and fails. I have a website that I launched. It's not completely finished, but I'm going to leave a link down below in the description. honeyragsco.com if you are nosy like me and want to go give it a look. I'm also going to leave a link down below in the description to my Instagram, which is honey.rags. I think that's all. Thank you so much for watching. Happy selling, happy thrifting, happy sourcing, whatever you call it, and stay safe.